Go.
The ongoing saga of Tom Crosby's legal bills and whether Cochise County taxpayers will be paying for it or he's going to be stuck with the bill himself continues to involve the Cochise County Board of Supervisors. Joining us is county reporter here at the Herald, Terri Jo Neff. Terri Jo, can you give us an update? What is the latest on the situation?
Sure. So the Board of Supervisors recently met, Matt, and decided that they wanted to hire a Tucson attorney to give them advice on what to do about the fact that Tom Crosby has submitted a demand for $300,000 to cover his criminal legal fees because he's being prosecuted for his acts that he did in November of 2022.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really easy when you see taxpayers on the hook for $300,000 to be outraged, and you should be. But this story is deeper. There's more nuance to it, and it really goes back to an insurance issue, if you kind of look at it that way, back after the 2022 election, when there could have been an opportunity to make an insurance claim to pay for Crosby's defense. What happened there?
Sure. So in November of 2022, then County Attorney Brian McIntyre basically said, hey, you're not going to get coverage from our insurance provider, which is the Arizona County's insurance pool, ACIP. And so neither Crosby or fellow supervisor Peggy Judd bothered to actually file a claim. If they had filed that claim way back, more than 2.5 years ago, ACIP probably would have denied it. But it would then have thrown the ball back in McIntyre's court, and he would have had to decide whether or not the county attorney's office would provide attorneys. Because keep in mind, Crosby and Judd Judd has already taken a plea deal, but Crosby is being prosecuted for official votes he made. He's not being accused of things like bribery, stuff like that. It's about his actual votes. So this whole question of who should have paid for what could have been decided a couple of years ago.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about what this is kind of like, and in a way, in terms of insurance, if you were, say, a trucking company and you had a worker who was got into an accident on a trucking company and the insurance said, no, we can't cover it because he wasn't doing the job, he went fishing, actually, or something like that. But this is different because Crosby was actually doing his job. He might have been mistaken or criminally mistaken about how he was doing, but he was still trying to do his job.
Correct. He was doing what he thought. And another way to compare that is sheriff's deputies or police officers. There is a qualified immunity that is given to law enforcement for making certain split-second decisions. In this case, Crosby and Judd were told repeatedly by the county attorney's office, you cannot delay these votes. You need to go ahead, you need to vote. This was for canvassing the 2022 election results. So you don't have that split-second thing there. You have actual deliberate decisions. So whether or not that would have called for defense counsel to be provided back then, we don't know. But if McIntyre had said, yes, we do think that we have to provide you, let's err on the side of caution, he then would have been responsible as the county attorney to go out and find criminal defense attorneys, experienced criminal defense attorneys. Taxpayers then would have paid them for experience. Instead, Tom Crosby hired somebody who is not known as a very experienced criminal defense attorney. He hired someone who's more of a political, civil attorney, and of course there's a question there as to whether or not another attorney would have really racked up $300,000 in bills.
But I mean, it kind of makes you wonder. I mean, we've all made insurance claims of one sort of in our lives, and if we were faced with the possibility of a large expenditure and we had the opportunity to file a claim, why wouldn't you just do it just for the heck of it?
Right. So that brings up the whole point of, was he negligent in the fact that back in November of 2023, when they finally got indicted, was he negligent for not doing something? And of course now our current county attorney, Lori Zucco, she's pretty much conflicted off of this. Her whole office is, because McIntyre still works for her, and her chief civil attorney, deputy attorney, was basically a witness to all of this. So she can't have anything to do with it either, which is why the Board of Supervisors recently hired Mick Rusing to come in and explain all of their options. Then we'll find out what the board decides to do about the actual demand for the $300,000.
So Mick Rusing, that now kind of catches us up and goes full circle here. Back in March, you reported that the county had already paid him $20,000 to do essentially what he's going to be doing again for probably another $20,000 just to find out what he probably told them in March, right?
Right. So we don't know what he said in March. What we know is that the board hired Mr. Rusing, who's a very experienced attorney, to tell them what the insurance policy would have and wouldn't have covered. What's really odd, Matt, is that he didn't provide them specific legal advice. So whatever he did say still has not been made public. It's a little concerning that, as you said, taxpayers paid $20,000 for him to provide an update on how the insurance policy worked and all of that, and it's never been discussed publicly. Now he's coming in and he's explaining the notice of claim process. What should the Board of Supervisors do? What are their obligations? What are the deadlines? We would hope that at some point that information becomes public.
Because, right, let's not forget at this point, Tom Crosby has basically threatened to sue his employer.
Right, correct. $300,000 is what he's demanding. He made his demand the early part of June. The county has 60 days. By then, we may even know when Tom Crosby is going to be going to trial in Maricopa County on the felonies.
And so ultimately this will be a decision made by, I assume, Crosby can't decide on this himself as a...
Correct.
So we've got two supervisors. Or how concerned are Frank Antonori and Kathleen Gomez about the political fallout for this? Should they give him a penny?
I don't think that from their political standpoint that they really care. But it does set a very negative precedent, because remember, all three supervisors ran last November on a conservative fiscal platform, and all they're doing is spending money on attorneys, possibly settling. There's a lot going on there where there's a lot more money being spent by our Board of Supervisors than I think even they wish that they were doing.
Well, it's a fascinating story that continues to develop. Keep following all of Terri Jo's writing in the Herald Review and at myheraldreview.com. For Terri Jo, I'm Matt. Have a great day.